Hi everyone, and welcome back to Splash Page. A new series on Apple TV just came out called Silo. This story is based on a novel series by Hugh Howey, and it's a trilogy that was originally published in 2011. Typically, when I make videos about shows that have source material, I jump into it, find all the Easter eggs, read the stories, etc. But for this show, I'm just going to watch it as a viewer and enjoy it. I'll call out all the details I see and also some theories that I have about where this show is going. So let's jump into the first episode entitled Freedom Day. We meet Holston Becker, who is the sheriff of the silo. Oh, well, I guess before we talk about Holston, I should explain the silo, or at least what we're told about in the first two episodes. An undisclosed amount of time ago, a large hole was drilled into the ground, and the hole was filled with the silo. The drill also, because it was so large, was just left at the bottom and it was walled off. The silo is an extremely large cylindrical and vertical city connected by ramp staircases that go from the top to the bottom. I don't believe we know how many levels it has via the show, but I read it's something like 3 sections, with each section having 48 floors in it. So if that's accurate, it's about 144 floors. In a few cases, we do hear characters talking about how long it will take for them to get from one point to another, and in some of those cases, it's a full day. So we have to imagine this place is very large. They have no elevators or vehicles to get them around, so it appears the only way to get anywhere is to walk there. Or if you just need to send an object, you can hire a porter, who are people that run around with kind of big backpacks or big racks, and they can deliver things throughout the silo for you. There appears to be engineers at the bottom of the silo who are in charge of keeping everything running. There are floors that have crops growing, we see cows, so we do see that they do have the ability to grow food and produce. We also see fresh flowers being put out, so we know that they can artificially create some kind of sunlight for photosynthesis. But why do people live in the silo? Well, the short answer is we don't know, and neither do the people living there. The basic story is that the outside world is toxic, and if you go outside, you will die within 3 minutes. So everyone that we know alive is in the silo. And they have strict rules on relationships and reproduction. More on that in a bit. From a government standpoint, we know that they have a mayor, a sheriff and a sheriff's department, and the Judicial, which appear to be some kind of scary secret police-esque people, who I'm assuming will be positioned as the bad guys for quite a while. The Silo's code of law is called the Pact, which came into use about 140 years ago, right after a civil war when rebels were attempting to break open the silo. The rebellion was put down, but all computers, books, and records from the time before were destroyed. So all our characters know is what happened from about 140 years ago to now. And Freedom Day celebrates the day the rebellion was stopped. So, the Pact, what are the rules? From what we know, these are the following rules we've been told so far. All relationships must be reported to the government. All women must have birth control surgically placed in them. To procreate, you must apply and then be accepted. Once accepted, you will have the birth control surgically removed from you, and you have 1 year to get pregnant. If you do not get pregnant in that 1 year, the birth control is placed back in your system. Relics, which is anything that was created before 140 years ago, if found, must be confiscated and then destroyed. And finally, if you say, I want to go outside, you are banished from the silo and forced to leave. This cannot be taken back. They call it going to clean, because when someone goes outside, the whole civilization watches on one camera that looks outside. There are screens in a few different areas within the silo that show the feed from the same camera outside. And it gets dirty over time because no one can go outside to clean it. So, when someone gets kicked out, they are given a piece of wool to clean the camera before they drop dead. They are asked to do this, they certainly cannot be forced to do it. Because they're given this piece of wool, I'm assuming this is where the book title came from. However, there's also the saying, pulling the wool over someone's eyes. And based on the mistrust of leadership that's being positioned to us in these first two episodes, I kind of think this interpretation is pretty important as well. Great, now that we have that out of the way, the show starts with Sheriff Holston Becker saying what we find out are the final words someone hears before they leave the silo. We do not know why we are here. We do not know who built the silo. We do not know why everything outside the silo is as it is. We do not know when it will be safe to go outside. We only know that day is not this day. I'll be honest, this part of the show gives me Logan's Run vibes. Holston appears to be going through his morning routine. He places flowers out. He suspiciously takes a few of the screws from his vent out. He then goes through the cafeteria and ends up at the sheriff's office. He writes a note and then tucks it in the folder. The note says, "Double the flowers in front of the mirror." He says hello to Deputy Marnes, who he appears to be friends with, before locking himself in Holding 3, which we find out is where his wife was held. He tells Marnes he wants to go outside, meaning that he will be banished. We then flash back 3 years to see Holston and his wife, Allison, get approved to reproduce. We see Allison get the procedure to remove her birth control, and a countdown clock starts, giving them 1 year to get pregnant. They get approached by a woman named Gloria, who offers her support, but they are really wary of her as she seems to be kind of an odd duck in the silo and kind of a conspiracy theorist. Allison, Holston's wife, works in IT and is very good at her job. She ends up posting almost an FAQ on how to recover lost or erased files and gets reprimanded for it from her boss, Bernard. On Freedom Day, she gets an IT call from George Wilkins, who specifically wants Allison, as he found a hard drive and wants to figure out how to access the files that were on it. After a bit of computer hacking montage, Allison successfully finds the old files, and she sees George jump right into the blueprints of the silo. She's scared about what she sees and leaves. However, she can't get it out of her head and eventually goes back. The year goes very quickly from there. We're not sure how many times she visited George, but we do know she starts to talk more to Gloria, who believes Allison doesn't have a chance to have a baby, that the powers that be don't want someone like Allison to procreate. Gloria says they want docile people, not people that will ask questions. At this point, we see it's just 1 day remaining in her window to get pregnant, and Allison sees the file name Jane Carmi Cleaning, which has a video of outside with birds chirping and green trees. After missing her last doctor's appointment, Holston comes home to see that Allison is bleeding. She says that her birth control was never removed, and she proves it by showing him that she cut it out of her own body, the one that we thought was removed at the beginning of the episode. As Holston looks for a doctor, Allison goes to the cafeteria and says she wants to go outside. She is then arrested and has a conversation with Holston in the holding area about why she thinks it's all a lie. Allison says that once she gets outside, if it's as bleak and toxic as the screen shows, she'll wave goodbye and die. But that if it's green and lush, she'll clean the camera so that Holston knows that it's actually clean out there. And she believes that people that do go out there and clean have the idea that they're attempting to show people what's really outside. And when she goes outside, she ends up cleaning the camera before she starts to walk away, and then we do see her die. 2 years later is now where we pick up the story, and George Wilkins is found dead. No one saw how he died, so everyone is assuming he committed suicide. But an engineer named Juliette Nicholas believes that George was murdered. Episode 2, named Holston's Pick, starts with the sheriff being suited up to head out. He gets the same speech about cleaning. He goes outside and we see through his helmet that it is beautiful. We do not see any of the dead bodies we saw through the screens. He cleans the camera before walking away. However, he begins to struggle before taking off his helmet, which is something no one has ever done before. He then crawls towards his wife's body and dies. More on this at the end of the video. Officer Marnes and the mayor then meet. The mayor says that the Jensen baby is due next week. She used to knit 25 blankets a year, one for every 10 babies. It appears that about 250 babies were born every year. She then says, now I'm lucky if I do 5. This either means that the birth rate has severely dropped or she's too busy to knit. They discuss who should be the next sheriff, as Marnes is retiring, but Holston left a note saying that he believes it should be Juliet, which happens at the end of the episode, but I figure I'll pepper it in here as we're going to jump into the Juliet story. We cut back to what appears to be a few days before Holston finds out George was murdered, and we see that Juliet and him had a secret relationship. She asked for Holston to come down so that she could say that it was a murder rather than suicide. And once they put all their cards on the table, Juliet opens up to Holston and tells him that she doesn't believe he killed himself because he was happy and left her a note the day before he died. With the note, there was a Pez dispenser, which they both understand is a relic, and they don't know what it was used for. The note says, "Remember where you were the last time you saw this. I found what I was looking for." However, she just shows Holston the first part by ripping the note in half, so he only sees, "Remember where you were the last time you saw this." Juliet takes Holston below the silo where the drill is, and George was apparently living down there. He has a number of other relics, and one being a video camera, which I wonder if it'll come up later. But they find the hard drive and the sketch pad that Holston's wife Allison was using to take notes, and he recognizes her handwriting. Holston leaves, but tells Julia he will send her a sign when he has a plan. He ends up taking the hard drive. Before he sends Juliet a sign, he ends up asking to leave and goes outside and is killed. The episode then ends with Juliet climbing down a rope to see what the second part of George's note meant. "I found what I'm looking for," as she assumes he found the way to the tunnel that he was looking for. She ends up losing her flashlight and being stuck at the bottom of the rope, a literal cliffhanger. So coming out of the first two episodes, there are a number of questions, but I think the three biggest questions are the following. What did Holston hide in the air vent? Where did the silo come from? Who built it and why? And finally, what is it really like outside? I think the first one is pretty obvious. Since he wants Juliet to follow him as sheriff, I have to assume in that case she would get his apartment. So he hopes she finds what's in the air vent, which I believe is the hard drive. The second, where did the silo come from and who built it? Well, I feel like that's what this whole show and series is going to be about, so not sure we'll ever get a clear answer for that, or at least we won't in this first season. And finally, and most curiously, what is it really like outside? We're told it is toxic and see there are bodies outside from the screen. Each person that leaves is given wool to clean the camera, and we are told that they always do. We see Allison say she will clean the camera if the world is clean and beautiful, and she does clean it. We actually see what Holston sees in his helmet, which is a beautiful day, birds flying, and no dead bodies. From that first-person view, he does also begin to struggle and falls down. As he struggles, we see that he crawls towards his wife's dead body, which he couldn't see with the helmet on, but he does end up dying directly next to her. So is this another lie? Is he alive like Allison? Maybe, but there are two things. One, he really struggles to breathe and he falls, because when he does that, we see that as a first person, so that isn't a camera trick for the people inside of the silo. And two, what he saw, we've seen before. When Allison found the file called Jane Carmi Cleaning, we can see the reflection of her glasses. This looks like the same thing Holston saw, down to even the birds flying. So it appears this is a recording of some kind shown in the helmets that makes people want to clean the camera so everyone can see better, but then they end up dying. But why would Allison clean the camera if she would have recognized this recording, considering she had already seen it before she had the helmet on? Did she know it was the same thing? Did she know but clean the camera for another reason? What do you think? I'm super stoked to cover this series, so if you're interested at all, please like and subscribe to our channel. I'll try to make a video every week on each new episode, as well as maybe some side videos about different theories. So thanks everyone, take it easy YouTube.